Delete the archive, and your brother walks free in the eyes of everyone who matters. Claire Voss's message glowed on the service tablet, just as Amara Reed realized the yacht's satellite link had gone dark. She stood alone in the glass-walled pantry of the Aurelia, 12 miles off Miami, while rain flattened the Atlantic into a sheet of gray metal. Upstairs, Viktor Hale was hosting a private strategy dinner for 3 investors who believed his criminal empire had become a respectable logistics company. Down below, every screen on the vessel flashed the same warning. Network quarantine active. 12 hours remained before the investors' scheduled return flight. 12 hours before the board could seize control of every account. And 12 hours before Malik's last chance to challenge the accusation expired. The storm had turned the yacht into a floating courtroom with no outside witness, no reliable signal, and no neutral record. Amara was 29, African-American, and officially employed as Viktor's personal maid. A title that sounded simple until one understood how much of his life passed through her hands. She scheduled his meals, guarded his routines, carried sealed documents between rooms, and noticed what powerful people assumed servants could not understand. Her older brother, Malik Reed, had once designed part of Hale Maritime's security system. 6 months earlier, he had been accused of inserting a hidden access key into that system, dismissed without a hearing, and blacklisted across the industry. Malik had denied it. Viktor had refused to reconsider. Amara had taken the position on the Aurelia to learn which of them was lying. Now the yacht was cut off during a company-wide cyber crisis, and Claire's message offered the revenge Amara had imagined on every sleepless night. The archive contained internal access logs, transaction histories, and private correspondence. If she erased it through the maintenance console, Hale Maritime would lose the evidence needed to defend itself, Viktor's reputation would collapse, and Malik's name might look less guilty by comparison. Yet the same archive might also hold the proof that someone else had framed him. Footsteps approached. Amara locked the tablet and turned as Viktor entered. 40 years old, Caucasian, composed in a charcoal suit with no tie, his pale gray eyes sharper than the storm beyond the windows. He did not ask why dinner had stopped. He looked at the quarantine symbol, then at her. "The bridge says the breach began from inside my private network," he said. "Only 4 people had access tonight." Amara's pulse tightened. "And I am one of them." Viktor placed a sealed drive on the counter. "You are the only one who entered my study after the system failed." She expected an accusation. Instead, he said, "For the next 12 hours, you and I are going to find the breach before someone ashore decides the truth for us." Then her tablet vibrated again with Claire's final instruction. "Erase everything before midnight." Viktor locked the pantry door, not to trap Amara, he said, but to keep the investors from seeing how badly the crisis had spread. The distinction did not comfort her. The Aurelia's internal network had divided itself into isolated zones, and every attempt to reconnect triggered another quarantine warning. Captain Jonah Pike had moved the investors to the upper lounge and told them the satellite outage was weather-related. Claire Voss, Hale Maritime's compliance director, remained ashore in Miami, supposedly coordinating legal counsel. Her private message to Amara said otherwise. Viktor set the sealed drive beside the maintenance console and explained that it contained the only clean copy of the company's emergency credentials. To use it, they would need the passphrase stored in his study and the physical authorization token kept in Amara's service cabinet. He had separated the items months ago because he trusted no single employee with full control. Now that caution forced them into partnership. Amara folded her arms. "You trusted me with half the key, but not enough to hear Malik's appeal." Viktor's expression changed by a degree, the smallest sign that her words landed. "Your brother's access signature was embedded in the breach that cost us $12 million. A signature can be copied. Not without privileged knowledge." Claire had privileged knowledge. Viktor did not defend Claire. He only said the board had accepted her report. That answer confirmed what Amara had feared. He had chosen speed over certainty. He handed her the drive. "You can refuse. If you do, I will still investigate, but I will assume you came aboard for revenge." Amara looked down at the silver casing. Claire had promised that destroying the archive would expose Viktor as careless and force him to settle with Malik. But no promise from Claire explained how she knew Amara could reach the maintenance console during a quarantine. That was the first crack in the offer. Amara opened the cabinet and removed the authorization token. I came aboard because no one else would look twice at a maid. And what did you find? That you read every report except the one that challenged your decision. Viktor absorbed the insult without retaliation. They crossed the silent corridor toward his study, while the yacht's lights dimmed to emergency levels. In the stairwell, Amara noticed a faint blue pulse under a brass panel, too regular to be part of the lighting system. She knelt and found a wireless relay clipped behind the trim, disguised as a temperature sensor. Viktor's jaw tightened. The relay was transmitting internally, not ashore. Someone had planted it before departure. Only the service team and Claire's compliance staff had inspected that corridor. Amara held up the device. The breach did not begin tonight, she said. Someone prepared this yacht for it. Viktor looked toward the upper deck, where the investors waited behind locked glass doors. Then one of my safeguards was designed by the person attacking us. They carried the relay into Viktor's study, a quiet room of dark walnut, cream leather, and wide windows blurred by rain. Amara had cleaned the room every morning for 3 weeks, but she had never seen it transformed into a command center. The desk displayed network maps, legal notices, and alerts from banks freezing transfers until Hale Maritime could prove that customer records were intact. The crisis was no longer technical. It threatened contracts, payroll, and Viktor's public claim that his business had left its old criminal reputation behind. He inserted the clean drive while Amara entered her token. The system requested a passphrase drawn from a printed emergency ledger. Viktor opened the wall safe and stopped. The ledger was there, but one page had been replaced with a copy. Amara recognized the difference because the original pages had deckled edges and faint cream fibers. This one was bright white, cut cleanly, and smelled of fresh toner. "Who can open this safe?" she asked. "Me, Claire, and the external auditor. The auditor is in Boston. Claire boarded yesterday for the compliance inspection." Viktor's voice remained controlled, but the room felt colder. Amara told him about Claire's message. She expected anger. He asked to see it. The wording was careful, promising Malik's public rehabilitation without admitting Claire had framed him. Viktor read it twice, then said, "She wants you to erase evidence, not recover it. You want me to believe that because it helps you. No. I want you to believe what the sequence supports." He pointed to the relay, the substituted page, and the timing of the quarantine. Amara hated that he was right. She also hated that he had not apologized for Malik. Trust could not begin with logic alone. Viktor seemed to understand. "I signed the dismissal," he said. "Claire recommended it, but the decision was mine. If your brother was framed, I damaged his life because certainty was convenient." The admission unsettled her more than denial would have. He found a handwritten backup phrase in a sealed envelope beneath the ledger. But when they entered it, the archive opened only in read-only mode. A process was already running. A timed purge scheduled for midnight. They had 8 hours left. The purge request used Malik's old credentials, yet its timestamp was created 3 days after he had lost access. Amara leaned closer. "That proves someone kept using his identity." Viktor nodded, then enlarged the metadata. The request originated from a compliance workstation assigned to Claire. Before either could speak, the study speakers activated with her voice. "Viktor, the board is receiving fabricated logs from the yacht. Do not trust Amara. Her brother built the back door, and she boarded to finish his work." The message ended, and every door on the lower deck locked at once. Viktor tried the control panel. Nothing moved. Amara stared at the timer counting down. Claire had just isolated them physically as well as digitally, and now the only person who could clear Malik's name was the man who had condemned him. Viktor tested the study's manual release, and found that the lock had been disabled through the same false maintenance relay. Amara remembered a service hatch behind the linen cabinet, narrow but large enough to reach the adjoining corridor. She had discovered it during inventory, then ignored it because no one expected a personal maid to map emergency access routes. Viktor removed his suit jacket and helped shift the cabinet without complaint. The gesture was practical, not intimate, but Amara noticed he did not order her into the hatch first. He crawled through, checked the corridor, and returned for the drive. They emerged near the laundry room, where the yacht's backup systems hummed beneath locked panels. Jonah called through an internal handset and said the investors were becoming suspicious. One had received a message claiming Viktor was destroying records to hide fraud. The message included a file bearing Malik's signature. Claire was building two stories at once. Viktor as corrupt, Malik as the technical accomplice. Amara asked Jonah to photograph the upper lounge terminals without opening any attachments. The captain agreed, then added that Claire had personally delivered a sealed equipment case before departure, and instructed the crew not to scan it, because it contained confidential legal files. A second planted device became likely. Viktor wanted to search Claire's assigned cabin. Amara refused until they documented each step. "You ignored process once," she said. "We do not fix that by creating evidence no one will trust." He met her gaze, then handed her his phone to record the search. It was the first time he allowed her to control the official account. In Claire's cabin, they found no dramatic confession. They found ordinary details arranged too carefully. A closed laptop, printed schedules, and a locked cosmetic case. Amara photographed the room before touching anything. The laptop's battery was warm despite the power outage. Its screen opened to a compliance dashboard showing the midnight purge, and a second timer linked to an automated disclosure package. At midnight, forged documents would be sent to regulators, investors, and news outlets. Viktor's company would appear to have hidden customer losses while blaming Malik for the breach. The cosmetic case contained the missing emergency ledger page and a hardware token registered to Claire's deputy, who had resigned 2 months earlier. The evidence was strong but not complete. Claire could claim the items had been planted. Then Amara noticed a handwritten notation beside the disclosure timer. Bridge Mirror 03. The phrase matched an old phrase Malik used when teaching her about system redundancy. It meant a copy existed on an independent device. She searched the room's reflective surfaces and found a compact data hub hidden behind the vanity mirror. The hub held a live connection to the yacht's internal cameras. Claire had been watching them the entire time. On the screen, a new text appeared. "You have 6 hours. Choose your brother or Viktor." Amara stared at the message until the words stopped feeling like a threat and started feeling like a test. Claire wanted her divided because divided people made predictable choices. Viktor unplugged the hub from the network, but did not touch the storage card. He asked what Claire had promised. Amara told him everything. A settlement for Malik, a public statement blaming procedural failures, and enough money for her brother to leave Florida. Viktor listened without interruption. Then he said the offer was designed to make Malik look dependent on mercy, rather than innocent by fact. Amara knew that was true. Malik had never wanted compensation first. He wanted his name restored. They moved to the yacht's small records room, which remained offline and therefore untouched by the quarantine. Using paper manifests and maintenance logs, they reconstructed the previous 48 hours. Claire had boarded twice, once for the official inspection and once late at night under the pretext of retrieving a forgotten folder. Jonah had signed her in both times. A camera log showed 12 minutes missing from the second visit. Viktor discovered that the missing interval matched the installation window for the relay. Still, the log could not prove Claire performed the work. Amara looked again at the maintenance roster. One technician's name had been added by hand, but no matching invoice existed. The signature belonged to Malik. She recognized the shape immediately, including a slight break in the final letter. It was an old scanned signature from a college internship form. Not the way he signed now. Claire had been collecting pieces of Malik's identity for years. The realization hurt because it meant his dismissal was not a convenient improvisation. It had been prepared. Viktor sat across from Amara at the narrow table, the harsh ceiling light exposing the fatigue he usually concealed. "I can release a statement now," he said. "I can say the investigation was flawed and suspend Claire. That protects you before it clears Malik." "Yes. Then do not do it." His eyebrows lifted. "You are asking me to stay silent while my board turns against me. I am asking you to accept the risk you forced onto my brother." For a long moment only the rain answered. Then Viktor closed the draft statement. Agreed. That choice changed something between them. It did not erase what he had done, but it proved he could surrender control when justice required it. Amara inserted the clean drive into the offline terminal and compared Malik's old code library against the purge script. She found 3 lines he would never have written. A timestamp format from Claire's compliance software, a mislabeled variable, and a routing command designed to create the appearance of remote access. 3 planted clues, all pointing away from Malik once someone looked closely. The script also contained a hidden verification call to a server registered through a shell vendor. Viktor recognized the vendor as one approved personally by Claire. They finally had a path to independent proof. Then the yacht's emergency clock reset itself, and the midnight timer jumped forward by 2 hours. The shortened deadline left 4 hours. Claire had realized they were close. Viktor contacted Jonah through the hardwired handset and ordered him to move the investors away from every connected screen. Amara interrupted before he ended the call. Do not order them to trust you. Ask them to witness the process. Viktor changed his instruction. Jonah was to bring the investors to the dining salon, keep their phones sealed in clear evidence bags, and prepare a projector connected only to the yacht's offline media system. Viktor would disclose the breach, his original decision against Malik, and the evidence as it was verified. It was a dangerous strategy for his reputation, but secrecy now served Claire. They still needed the shell vendor records. The vendor's server could not be reached without restoring limited satellite access, and doing so might allow the purge to complete. Amara proposed using the navigation weather channel, which transmitted through a separate low-bandwidth link. Jonah confirmed the link could send text packets but not large files. Viktor wrote a request to Hale Maritime's external counsel asking for the vendor registration, board authorization records, and a notarized timestamp. Amara added Malik's attorney to the request. He does not have an attorney anymore, Viktor said. He does now, she replied, and entered the name of a legal aid lawyer who had once advised her brother. Viktor signed without hesitation. While they waited, Claire opened a voice channel through the disabled hub. She spoke calmly, claiming that Malik had sold access credentials, and that Amara's loyalty was being exploited by a man who would abandon her once the crisis ended. Amara did not answer the accusation. She asked why the purge script used Claire's timestamp format. Silence followed. Viktor watched Amara, understanding that the question was not meant to win a confession. It was meant to create a recorded inconsistency. Claire recovered and said the format was standard. Amara asked why the maintenance roster used a signature from Malik's internship record. Claire ended the call. The hub stored the exchange automatically. Minutes later, the weather link returned a compressed legal response. The shell vendor was controlled by an asset management trust whose authorized representative was Claire Voss. The registration had been renewed the week Malik was dismissed. External counsel also confirmed that no board committee had reviewed the technical evidence against him. Claire had falsely certified that the review was complete. Viktor looked at the documents for a long time. I built a system where one person could convert my impatience into policy, Amara said. Then the system is part of the confession. He did not argue. Together they prepared an evidence sequence. Original metadata, substituted ledger page, relay serial number, maintenance roster, vendor registration, and Claire's recorded answers. One problem remained. The purge could still erase the archive before they copied the full logs. Amara had access to the delete command Claire wanted her to use. The same command, modified carefully, could freeze the archive instead. If she made one error, both truth and revenge would disappear together. Amara sat at the offline terminal with Viktor beside her, and the clean drive between them. The delete command had 3 stages: revoke access, overwrite the index, and destroy the recovery map. She could stop after the first stage and redirect the archive into immutable storage, but only if Viktor surrendered his master credentials. Those credentials controlled not just the yacht's network, but emergency authority across Hale Maritime. He hesitated. Amara understood why. Men like Viktor survived by never placing total power in another person's hands. You asked me to decide whether I came here for revenge, she said. Now I am asking whether you came here for truth. Viktor removed a card from his wallet, entered a 12-word phrase, and turned the keyboard toward her. Do it. The choice carried more weight than any apology. Amara modified the command line by line, using Malik's coding notes from the clean drive to verify each dependency. The purge timer reached 22 minutes. On the upper deck, Jonah assembled the investors. Claire sent one final message offering to release Malik's name from every internal blacklist if Amara completed the wipe. Amara copied the message into the evidence folder and did not reply. At 9 minutes, the archive rejected the new storage path because the system clock no longer matched the yacht's certified time. Claire had altered the clock to invalidate their signatures. Viktor suggested resetting it manually, but that would destroy the chain of custody. Amara remembered the weather packet from external counsel. It carried a notarized timestamp from a server beyond Claire's control. She used that timestamp as the archive's reference point, creating a bridge between the isolated yacht and an independent legal record. The command accepted. At 3 minutes, the purge froze. Every log became read-only, mirrored onto the clean drive and the bridge hub's storage card. Amara exhaled for the first time in what felt like an hour. Viktor did not celebrate. He asked whether Malik's original access key still appeared as the source. She opened the full authentication chain. Malik's credential was present, but the biometric confirmation attached to it belonged to Claire's deputy, the employee who had resigned. A secondary approval originated from Claire's hardware token. The chain proved Malik's identity had been used without him. More importantly, it showed that the original breach 6 months earlier had followed the same pattern. Claire had framed him to establish a scapegoat before launching the larger attack. Viktor called the dining salon and said they were ready. As they left the records room, Amara asked what he would do if the investors demanded her arrest for accessing restricted systems. "I will state that I authorized you. And if they remove you? Then they remove me after hearing the truth." They entered the salon together, not employer and maid, but 2 witnesses carrying the evidence that could destroy Claire's plan or expose Viktor's failure before everyone he needed to impress. The dining salon had been transformed into an improvised hearing room. 3 investors sat along one side of the table, their sealed phones visible in clear backs. Jonah stood near the projector. Claire appeared on the screen through a secure voice connection, refusing video because she claimed the yacht's cameras were compromised. Viktor began without excuses. He stated that Hale Maritime was under coordinated attack, that customer records remained intact, and that he had dismissed Amara Reed 6 months earlier based on an investigation he had not independently verified. The admission changed the room. One investor asked whether Viktor was conceding negligence. "I am conceding responsibility," he said. Then he gave the floor to Amara. Claire objected immediately, calling her a domestic employee with no technical authority. Amara answered, "That is why no one noticed what I was allowed to see." She presented the relay photographs, the ledger page, the forged maintenance signature, and the vendor registration. Each item appeared beside its timestamp and chain of custody note. Jonah confirmed Claire's late-night boarding. External counsel joined by the weather link and verified the notarized records. Claire argued that the evidence had been manipulated by Malik through Amara. Amara then played the recorded exchange in which Claire claimed her timestamp format was standard, followed by a comparison showing it existed only inside Claire's compliance software. Viktor displayed the authentication chain from both breaches. The investors saw Malik's stolen credentials paired with the former deputy's biometric signature and Claire's active token. One investor asked Claire to explain the mismatch. Her silence lasted 9 seconds. Then she said Viktor had ordered the operation to protect hidden revenue. Viktor opened the archive's financial index and authorized independent review. The records showed no hidden customer losses, only a series of transfers routed toward Claire's shell vendor. The amount was large enough to explain the attack and small enough to have escaped notice beneath emergency consulting expenses. Claire tried one final defense. She said Viktor's criminal past made her story more believable than his. Viktor agreed. "That is why I am not asking for belief. I am submitting records." The sentence ended the psychological advantage she had used all night. The investors voted to suspend Claire's authority, notify federal cybercrime investigators, and appoint an independent examiner. Viktor added a motion requiring Hale Maritime to restore Malik's credentials, issue a public correction, fund his legal costs, and invite him to review the new security structure if he wished. Amara insisted the offer include no confidentiality clause. Viktor accepted. The vote passed. As the clock reached midnight, the disclosure package failed because the archive was frozen. Claire disconnected. No one applauded. The room was too aware of how close reputation had come to replacing truth. Outside, the storm began to thin. Viktor turned to Amara and said before every witness, "Your brother was wronged by my company and by my decision. I will correct both." She believed the promise only because he had attached consequences to it. Then Jonah handed her a newly received message from Malik. "I saw the notice. Do not let him make you disappear behind my name." Dawn found the Aurelia moving slowly toward Miami under a pale sky. The investors remained aboard to preserve the evidence chain, while external examiners prepared to meet the yacht at the marina. Malik joined by an authenticated call from his apartment in Fort Lauderdale. He was 33, exhausted, and cautious when Viktor apologized. Viktor did not ask forgiveness. He listed what would happen next. The dismissal would be rescinded, the blacklist notices withdrawn, lost salary placed in escrow pending independent calculation, and every board member who approved the flawed process required to review the examiner's report. Malik accepted the correction but declined Viktor's immediate job offer. "I will review the system as an outside consultant," he said. "I will not return as proof that everything is repaired." Viktor agreed. Amara smiled because her brother sounded like himself again. After the call, she found Viktor alone on the aft deck, his charcoal shirt open at the collar, his suit jacket folded beside him. He told her that Claire's accounts had been frozen by court order, and that investigators had preserved the Shell vendor records. No settlement required silence. No secret bargain replaced the truth. Amara said she would resign as personal maid once the yacht docked. Viktor looked toward the marina, then asked whether the decision was punishment. "No, it is freedom." She explained that she had taken the job to investigate him, not to build a life around his routines. Staying under the same title would turn every act of trust into another question about power. Viktor accepted that, though disappointment moved across his face. "Then I have another offer," he said. Hale Maritime needed an independent ethics and access officer with authority to challenge executive decisions, report outside the compliance chain, and protect employees from retaliation. Amara laughed once. "You are offering a maid a corporate office. I am offering the person who forced this company to follow evidence." She did not answer immediately. She asked for a contract reviewed by her own attorney, a direct reporting line to the independent examiner, and a rule that Viktor could not overrule her without a recorded board vote. He agreed to every condition. Only then did she accept. Months later, Malik's report led to a redesigned security system that separated emergency power from personal loyalty. Amara moved into a small office overlooking Biscayne Bay, and kept the silver clean drive in a locked evidence case as a reminder that truth survived because someone refused both revenge and obedience. Viktor learned to ask questions before issuing judgments. Their trust grew outside the uniform, outside the yacht, and outside the crisis. When he invited her to dinner, he did it after her probation ended and in writing made clear that refusal would change nothing at work. Amara chose yes. Not because he was powerful, not because she had saved him, and not because he had repaired every harm. She chose him because when the 12 hours ended, he had given up control often enough to prove that trust could become mutual.